Hey, my name is Proto. This is the Talos Principle 2. I am not very good at talking and playing at the same time, and I love this game very much, so I'm gonna let the two commentators, they're gonna be talking about the game the whole time. So,
All right.
is that good enough?
Cool. Yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Gelly, and my co-commentator here will be.
Bobby Berm, hello.
Yeah, so we'll be doing an any percent run here with an estimate of about 50 minutes. I don't think we've got really anything that we want to explain ahead of time. So if you just want to start the run, the time starts when we skip the first cutscene. I don't know, 3, 2, 1. I'm not very good at the countdowns. Go for it.
Yeah,
3, 2, 1,
go.
All right. So first we need to explain photo mode, which is an in-game way to be able to take screenshots, and it's going to be the core of our ability to do most of the tricks that you see before us. So for example, here we're executing something called a quump, which is a frame perfect jump after a photo mode. When we do a photo mode, the game essentially pauses and gives us the ability to jump, and we're going to use that to skip the vast majority of the game here. The other thing that was attempted here using photo mode is something called neath skip. If you nail a frame perfect photo mode, you give yourself the ability to open photo mode in this part of the game. And if you hit that on the first available frame, then you're able to walk during various cutscenes. We're going to abuse photo mode very heavily throughout the duration of the run. And we're already, a minute in, and we're doing our best to pull off about 10 or 12 photo modes on particular frames here.
Yeah, totally. This game really combines like technical skips combined with like beautiful atmospheres really, really well. And this game has come such a long way over the last like even just couple months with how many skips and all of the technical like executions that we have to pull off in this run.
Right. Another technical execution here as we're going to enter the tower here. So this is a sequel to the game. We've been reborn as a robot. There's going to be, although we're not going to be executing quite a few of them, there's a fair few ways that we're going to save time by resetting checkpoint. So if you're stuck in an elevator for an extended period of time, but you hit the checkpoint ahead of time, it is profitable to start holding the restart checkpoint button, and then the moment that you clip into that checkpoint volume, you would reset. Unfortunately, during this run, it doesn't really make sense to do that because of RTA. So we're doing conference skip here, which is a series of vertical quumps to go all the way up to the roof here. We're going to skip a cutscene and then a locked door, and then we're going to enter. Hey, you're doing my method. Thank you. Over here to talk to the VTOL over here, and this VTOL is going to take us to the various different towers. So there's 12 different towers that we each have to activate. We do 3 towers and then a megastructure, 3 towers, a megastructure, and so on. And as it stands right now, we don't have any way to skip any of those. So we're going to essentially clump our way to each of the towers as fast as possible. Now, it isn't just a matter of running directly to point A from point B and then going back to point C. There's a lot of intrigue in regards to how they've programmed the game with hotfixes. There's tower warps and stucco warps. We'll get all to that when we get there. But first, we're going to be going to a lab. These labs are necessary in the context of the game for one reason or another. I don't even remember. I'm sorry. But in any case, we have to get to this lab, open a terminal, read a document, and then warp back. Well, we're going to warp back. Normally you'd run back, but because running in this game is so slow, we're going to do something called a stucco warp. So the first thing that we're going to do is photo fling. A photo fling in this context is just going to be abusing some of the mechanics within photo mode to essentially warp through a wall. It's a frame perfect input to get through the wall there. Excellent work. We're going to go through the top here. This is to avoid a particular checkpoint that you would normally hit, so that now we can use photo mode to skip this interaction, get stuck in a wall with the terminal still up. There we go. And by maybe not tricking the game into thinking that we're stuck, but convincing it that we are, we can walk around with this terminal still on screen and skip an additional cutscene as well as the walk back. And now the beginning of the run is upon us. And so that right there was a stucco warp. We'll see a couple of those there, but essentially if you get stuck within a wall, you can reset checkpoint without actually restarting checkpoint, which allows you to leave things like terminal windows up and such. So here's E1. Berm, would you like to explain why we need to do puzzles?
Yeah, so at least in this area, so to unlock this tower, the very first tower that we're going to find here, we actually have 5 required puzzles that we have to do to actually access the tower and continue through this area. So we're going to see Protal here hit 5 of these different areas here. We're already done with the first one. Already hit that button, reset. The second you hit those buttons, you can automatically just reset, and we're on our way to our second one here. So we do have required puzzles in this area. All the other areas aren't necessarily required to do puzzles. So this area is one of the only areas we actually have to hit some of these terminals here.
In particular, the puzzles are what lock us from getting to the next area, to E2. We could go to the tower immediately and then come back, but unfortunately, the capsule system is locked up at this point. There's a couple of other instances where the capsule is going to be locked up for labs, and there's other instances where it should be locked up due to labs, but we have our ways around them.
You can see here there's a lot of jumping around, like over these gates and stuff. These are obviously separate puzzles, but we obviously just clump all the way over to other puzzles because it's the most direct way to get there, which is really cool.
It almost doesn't matter whether or not there's any walls in the way.
Exactly.
This is actually a very subtle, intriguing thing happening here, which is a group call skip. So if we're running out of here and you restart checkpoint, normally there's a group call where you interact with a bunch of NPCs, which we have technically met at this point, but you're supposed to call them and do more story elements. But those purple barriers provide us a checkpoint that we can use to reset certain conditions. And by going back to that purple barrier and restarting the checkpoint, we've actually delayed when the group call is going to come to us. And if we time it just right...
the one that I did removes it.
Oh, this one removes it, right. Okay, so normally and then we warp back to the purple barrier. In this case, because we're just doing some RTA strats, we're just running back to the purple barrier. For whatever reason, I wish I understood better. I wish anybody understood better. We have ways to get rid of these group calls, which we'll see one of them shortly, but it won't matter too much. Well, depending on how well you pull this off, we'll see how well that works.
In each of the towers, you'll notice that we're gonna... Oh, there you go.
We did get it. Are we in trouble?
That's funny. In each of these towers, you're going to see one of these like gods show up on top. They're going to say some lore-based things. They each have like a set of questions and answers that you can have. There are some of them that are faster than others that you can memorize to click through some of their audio sequences a little bit quicker. But a lot of them we just kind of spam through and continue on to the next area.
Now, you'll notice that we had the group call screen up. But we warped back to this area from the tower, which is actually an intended thing that they've added recently. If the bridge isn't built and you're inside the tower and you fire the laser, some players would get soft locked because they had built the bridge without building the bridge, quote unquote. So they've added something called what we would call the tower warp, which is just essentially an anti-stuck prevention measure that warps us back, which saves a lot of time. But believe it or not, in quite a few of these levels, it will actually be too slow for us, and we will be doing stucco warps on the way back. But we'll get there when we get there. Here's another lab that we'll be interacting with that's a very similar stucco warp, but like we saw at the very beginning, right after the VTOL here. You may be noticing that instead of just walking forward, we're actually going to clip through this wall here using a photo fling. The reason that we do that is to avoid
nice
checkpoints. Yep. And then we're going to clip back in. Here we go. We're going to do a PMIC, which is something that you've seen, where you open photo mode on the same frame that you open a terminal, which allows us to walk around with the terminal still up, and then we're going to get stuck in this corner. The reason that we have to go around outside the way that we do instead of just walking in is to avoid a checkpoint, so that when you get stuck, the original checkpoint, which is near that capsule, is where you get warped back to, and that saves a decent amount of walking time, about 15 to 20 seconds. There's about, I don't know, 6-7 frame perfect inputs to pull that all off, and almost no issues there. We just got through there one and done.
No problem. It's really cool. I really love this section because it really shows how well you have to know the levels, just because, like, you know, your entire screen is blurred, right? So you really have to have a deep understanding of the game to, like, even move with that terminal open. It's so complicated, and really, really good job.
A wonderful viewing experience.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So we've activated a Miranda cutscene, which is something where your character gets overloaded in the... There's some story elements, but basically we get warped to a place and back. And by being inside of the elevator when you come back, Normally you'd be stuck and you'd have to wait around a little bit while your character woozes around. But instead, by opening the group call inside of that elevator when you're not supposed to, you go up the elevator while you're in that woozy state, which saves about 5 seconds on a good day. And then we get the standard tower warp, which is your anti-stuck prevention, and then we're going to go to E3 here. So also another thing that they very nicely added is the ability to skip these cutscenes. However, actually, I don't know. Yeah, you are dissatisfied with this. You may see that we drop through the bottom of these capsules on the entrance to a lot of these. This is to skip the animation of coming out of the capsule when we enter a level. So we're still not satisfied with the ability to skip the capsule cutscenes that they've added, and we have to also skip the animation that's associated with it to save just a little bit of time on each of those.
And fun fact, actually, you see these jumping. We load into an area, we just jump across those platforms. Normally, the game, you're supposed to collect like all of these different puzzles and collect the pieces inside of the puzzles to build those bridges. We just skip those, and we're using that photo mode skip that we have, and we just skip all of it in every single level. So you see that's a theme in different ways across the game.
So this is our stucco warp to go faster than a tower warp here. So a tower warp takes about 12 seconds.
Nice.
But we have the time to run over there, get stuck inside that wall, warp back to the checkpoint, and go back to the capsule before the laser even fires. This doesn't save as much time as it sounds like, because you still have to wait for the laser to fire. But each one of those saves, I think it's about 2.5 seconds to put all that input in, depending on how well you can input the sliders. And now we're on our way to Megastructure 1. Which is going to involve a lot more of our warping. I don't think we end up... we end up doing a terminal warp, correct? Just to reiterate. Okay, we're going to do a terminal. Do we do convict? Yeah, we do convict warp. We'll get there. It's super fun. We'll get there when we get there.
Right.
Before we get to the skips, I will mention that we used to have to watch that entire cutscene. Now we could just skip right through like a minute, or even from like a couple months ago. We were just able to just skip all of that now and go right into the next level.
Mm-hmm. The requirement is having a completed save file for whatever reason, but once you put that into your folder or whatever, you're able to skip all these VTOL cutscenes, which saves an intense amount of time. So shout outs to the devs for coming up with the way to skip those, which has cut literally like 30 minutes off the run. So this is going to be a pretty intense sequence here. So first you do PMIC to open this terminal, and then we're going to be walking through pretty much the entire labyrinth here with this terminal up. You may notice that you can't see anything, but good news, neither can we. So we're just using a bunch of light cues in the background. If you can see blobs, Protal has memorized how these interact well enough to do this even sufficiently. And having this terminal up during the entire way of going through this M1 here is what we call it, Megastructure 1, is crucial to saving quite a bit of time here. So while this isn't a thrilling viewing experience, it will save like a minute and a half. It's quite a bit of time.
Generally speaking, with megastructures, the general theme of all of them is you go in, you get to a piece of like knowledge or lore in the middle of the structure, and then you get out, right? This skip allows us to completely remove the second half of that by completely just going back automatically, getting out of the megastructure in seconds. So it saves, what you would imagine this walking time right now. We save all of that time a second time by doing the skip.
Yeah. This one in particular is going to be terminal stucco warp. So when you close a terminal, it will set your checkpoint back to the terminal because it thinks, oh, you had opened and closed this terminal. Now if you restart checkpoint anywhere, you're going to go back to the terminal. However, we're going to abuse that by closing the terminal while we're inside of this. Oh no, do we not do the corner stucco warp here? Am I thinking of the wrong level? I'm thinking of the wrong level. Yeah. We'll do it in Megastructure 2, spoilers. This is basically, we're just going to open the second terminal and enable the Miranda cutscene here with the terminal still up, which is wild to me. You would expect it to be in a different map, but all these Miranda maps are actually in the same map. We're still going to have the terminal up. We're going to close the terminal immediately, and if the game is conducive to it, if the game is nice to us, we will get warped all the way back. Excellent work.
Nice.
Good job.
Really
Great
nice.
job. Excellent. So by playing the game blind for about a minute and a half, we have saved a minute and a half, and we're all the way back here on our next list of towers over here.
I believe next area is north, I believe.
Correct. So it's got a snowier theme, which is nice looking. Everything in this game is pretty enough. We, for better or for worse, have set all of the graphics down to low so that we can have passable frame rates, even though we are running at 30 FPS because clumping is a frame perfect trick. We rely on it so heavily. The lower the frame rate, the better. But we still need to have performance run well enough to not have any lag spikes, which is something that may or may not have been hot. No, it wasn't hot fixed, right? Yeah, they're working on it.
One thing that I think is particularly interesting is like any of the structures you see in the background here are actually like real structures in the game. So like, you know, you could actually go and interact with anything you're seeing really in the game, including the megastructures. They're just
all
enormous.
The collision is pretty much real. There are some exceptions, but for the, you know, they're sort of exceptions where only we would find it, where it's like, oh yeah, if you fly around the back of this structure after about, you know, 5 minutes, you'll find a missing block. Wow. No, it really is impressive that they've managed to sculpt all these structures well enough to look great from a distance and be what they are up close.
Exactly.
This is the most intensive part of clumping in the entire game because you have to make a decent amount of vertical while going horizontal. That is a joke. Don't trust me on that one. There's really nothing interesting to happen here. We don't get to do a stucco warp here because when you enter the elevator coming out of the capsule, you get a checkpoint at the top. So you'd only get warped back to the top of that elevator, and by that time you get tower warped back to the capsule, and all of your effort is wasted. Are you going for it? Oh my god, he might be going for it. He's getting the spark.
Oh my gosh.
I joked about this on NP.
Wow.
No, this is a strategy to collect this spark before you
That's
get tower
hilarious.
warped back. It does not matter for this run.
That's so funny.
It doesn't do anything, but it is just stunting. Just very funny.
Normally those are used to skip levels, but
they're used to skip puzzles.
We just don't do that really. So,
and then this is Bruce. This is an improved version of Bruce. We've gone through a lot of iterations over time, but thankfully this is the easiest and most consistent one. We're going to open photo mode while in the capsule here. We're going to drop through the bottom by opening and closing photo mode, and then opening the menu to have a menu overlaid at the same time as closing the capsule. So we're no longer in the capsule. We haven't hit any checkpoints, so we've just basically gone through the floor. From here, we're going to make our way to this particular terminal, which is a lab that's required to unlock the ability to go to N3. And then we're going to photo fling our way into the door, get stuck, open this Miranda cutscene while we enter this capsule, so that we will be in the capsule while the Miranda cutscene goes on. This is all important because when we come out of this, we are going to be obligated to talk to Byron, who is an NPC that he exists in the game and wants to talk to us, and he will drag us down into the depths. So if you're not inside this capsule, but you're up here above the ground, you will drown before you make it down to him and finish the conversation. So we need to be inside the capsule to both have the ability to breathe and also, when we exit the capsule, warp back to the top. From here, we will be able to restart checkpoint, and that saves about 30 seconds of walking.
such a cool skip. I love that so much.
It used to be so much worse to the point where Protal had to use modified versions because depending on whether or not you played on keyboard or using a mouse, you got worse or better results. Like you could never open the menu in the entire duration of the old Bruce. But thanks to the ability to skip checkpoints and our utilization of stucco warps, we can actually now have this unified method that everyone's decently happy with.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you want to explain why I did 2 restart checkpoints?
Oh yeah. So whenever you do a NOCLIP is what we call it, where that was the falling through the ground while you had the photo mode open. Depending on what you do, which it's kind of unclear exactly what it is, but like sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. But for the most part nowadays, we see it because they must have patched it in. If you open photo mode, you can't close it without holding right click because the game still thinks you have a menu up even after you've restart checkpoint. So you actually have to restart checkpoint twice to clear out some cruft that exists within the UI. I think it's a part of what allows you to leave the capsule while clipping under the ground without having to warp back to the capsule, but it's still one of those things that's up into the air that we don't truly understand. Do you not stucco? Oh, you failed the stucco.
I failed it like 4 times in a row, so...
Oh, that's fine.
I just get booked.
Couple seconds, no problem.
Yeah.
Every photo fling again is a photo. It's a photo perfect input. It's a frame perfect input in particular. Most of these photo mode tricks are indeed frame perfect inputs to get them to do anything. When we get to the super flings, that'll be like 2 frame perfect inputs, and that's when it starts to get a lot more rickety.
Yeah,
With each of these clumps, it's extremely impressive that you can get the sort of success rate that Protal is getting here to be able to make it across.
Yeah, I can't even begin to express how difficult like each of these jumps that we're doing are here. Like it's very, very difficult to even like get across like a gap like that without a sufficient amount of practice.
The sequence for a jump is to open photo mode, close photo mode, jump on the frame after you close photo mode, and then repeat. If you fail it, you have to be able to respond in time to the fact that you failed it. If you succeed, you want to be jumping for about 0.3 seconds, depending on what angle that you're aiming to like go up or down or whatever. So it's a whole practiced dance that happens a couple thousand times during the entire run here.
And just like that, we're on to Megastructure 2.
This is the one that's the most intense. We'll be going for a super fling here. So we're going to talk to somebody and leave while talking to them, Alcatraz in particular. And this is called a convic, or conversation interaction canceling. So we're going to open photo mode on the same frame that we're going to talk to Alcatraz here, who is at the exit of this VTOL. So we actually have to restart checkpoint in order to give us the ability to open photo mode at all. From there, we will be walking around while we have this input on screen. It'll be important for him to hit sure in order to not crash the game here. That's the point that we're getting to here, is that we don't have a way to prevent a crash. But once he pulls off opening photo mode on the same frame that Alcatraz tries to talk to us, we can open and close photo mode. And then he's going to be super careful here to hit sure. There we go. Good. So the dialogue is going to continue, and there's going to be no crash. You may see him jumping up here for what looks like no reason. We're actually avoiding a voice line trigger, because if any other voice plays, we're going to get warped back to Alcatraz, and we need that warped back for something else, which we'll get to hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, there's a ton of these invisible walls we have to hop over.
Yeah. Yeah. It used to be a lot worse when we were doing Convic and M1, but now that we have terminals both increase consistency and also have a better way of actually making it back.
I'm going to need some silence.
Stand. Yep. Let's be quiet.
Then just be careful, okay?
Okay, we missed it. So you need to hit the frame that you're getting dragged back to Alcatraz. Otherwise, you will get warped back like you see there. So we're just going to go through the level normally, which is fine. Just a bit of a time loss for a marathon purpose. You know, we factored it in. Don't sweat it. But what you'd expect to happen, and what we'll hopefully see, depending on the other super flings that happen in the run here, is that if you hit it on the correct frame, you'll see while we're in photo mode that we slowly get dragged back. And if you open and close photo mode with a certain frame timing, then you'll see you're slowly getting dragged forwards. And then when you close photo mode, the amount that you would get warped back is actually added. So you actually go in the complete opposite direction, and by standing there, you warp pretty much exactly where you need to go through everything, which saves an unbelievable amount of walking. From there, we would have to warp back using a stucco warp over here, which we'll see shortly.
Hey, did you see all those puzzles in that area? Those were puzzles, you know.
The real puzzle with Talos games is figuring out how to not do them.
Exactly.
But by standing in this corner here, we'll do a photo fling into this corner, and by being stuck while getting warped through, we'll get warped back to here. Yep. And then from here we can restart checkpoint to set everything in motion that should be in motion. And that's almost the most intensive part of the run. We're on to New Jerusalem 2 and the rise and fall of Geherbinal. So there is an incentive that we've added to pet a cat, which is funny. That's where that would happen, right about here. We'd add about 1.5 minutes of time. but we have a really interesting route where you can open and close multiple terminals and chain them in such a way where you make it to the cat, and then on the way back you use a different terminal. We'll get to the terminal thing, I promise.
Also, there are very cute. There are very cute cats in this game. We want to be able to pet them, so we need that incentive in this game to get in for that purpose.
We need the incentive
On
of
its
petting
own,
the
on
cat,
top
yeah.
of the exactly.
Yeah, halfway through the game. But if that's not the case, then we're just going to grab a document from an old man, and then we're going to go back. So the way, I wish I could explain the story in more detail, but we just don't have time.
Yeah.
So we're going to be pulling off something called Geherbinal here, which is in the Gehenna Memorial Interactive Fiction Exhibition. We're going to restart checkpoint here to reset the elevator down to the bottom. And we're going to use a glitch called Turbinal to basically zip and zoom our way through everything here. So by opening photo mode on the same frame that you open a terminal here, you get turbo. So by being in third person and holding particular camera angles, you can get increased speed, which is manipulatable based on, I think it's the pitch of your camera angle. So he's in a terminal while talking to this Neath character over here. And the game is none too pleased to see that. From here, we open this other terminal and close the previous terminal so that we warp back. And then we're going to reuse this terminal to go into the elevator and maintain the speed up until we need to enter the VTOL up at the top here.
I love the skip so much. It's so funny looking. Oh, it's just the best.
We used to do this in first person, which was the only part of the run where we used high FPS. But once we put in the practice to learn how to do this in third person, then it wasn't dependent on your FPS anymore. It was dependent on your camera angle, and that was something that was in everyone's control. And if you're at 30 FPS, you will go as fast or faster than going 200 FPS going forward.
Whee!
Yeah, and then the spin. And then
you know what's funny? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say I always used to do this in third person, so I would kind of just run it. And like the first time I tried that, I had no idea I had to do it with pitch, and I was just flying around the map. It's so funny.
Yeah. A little funny thing there is you may have seen we were flying away from the terminal as we were skipping that cutscene there. This is so that we can clear out the terminal without having to restart checkpoint. It's a very small optimization, but after you skip the cutscene, you can go back to the terminal and not crash the game or mess up anything in any severe way, at least for the Geherbinal terminals, to my knowledge. And that will clear out the terminal, and the game will be happy enough to let you do the rest of the game. So we're on to South. And while we'd normally have more interesting things to do in the forms of doing labs, unfortunately for this entire section of the game, all of the labs don't unlock any of the towers. They unlock the bridges, and we're not too concerned about the bridges being out. So we're just going to be jumping to and fro. There is a little bit of intrigue in that each of these tower structures has a different stucco warp location. Normally, most of them have this standardized structure where you can get stuck in a place. But Protal had to scout out a bunch of different places to get stuck instead, because all of these are different. So you will see we'll get stuck in different places. But for the most part, from here on out, we're just going to jump the tower, warp back, rinse and repeat until we get to Megastructure 3. So this is where we'd open up for donations or whatever. This is the free time that we get in the run.
Yeah, I will note that, I mean, we did talk about this before, how you generally, this game is very input heavy. You'll notice that whenever we're clicking into here, I'll remind everyone that when you are doing that, you're hitting multiple inputs at the same time, and you do have to hit them at the exact same time, mind you. So even like when we're doing something as simple as getting into like the capsule, for example, like even that is like a really tight input that we're inputting every single time we're doing that.
Yeah, because entering the capsule, if you go fast enough, it looks like the game sort of jitters a little bit. What's actually happening there is Protal is opening photo mode at the same time as opening the capsule, and then closing photo mode just as fast so that the capsule keeps going. You aren't stuck in photo mode for any extended period of time.
Exactly. Cool.
Oh yeah, Protal, I don't know if you wanted to do the thing, the wobble.
Oh yeah, I'll try.
Have you ever done the wobble in a run before?
In a run?
All right, we're popping off.
But I've done it.
This doesn't matter, for the record. This is just us having a little bit of fun with the game. Normally we'd do a stucco warp back to the source. But if you instead make it over here and you open this Prometheus terminal, while the game tower warps you back, you will wobble around a little bit. All right.
Oh,
Oh yeah, a little woozy. I think a dev told me we won't patch that out because it's funny. So
that's so funny.
they'll just leave because like it would be so complicated to do anything regarding that. All of this stuff is so layers on layers on layers to where I'm not sure even if I knew what I'd be looking for how to patch it out. So like we're probably good. We probably won't expect anything to happen, but
Right.
they've always given us access to the patches that matter anyway. So
Right. This area is really cool. It's kind of like a 2-layered level. So you have like this whole like almost like Coliseum underground like looking vibe here, and as well as like a big map on the surface as well. I really like this level, even though it is kind of a lot of walking. But we just luckily the terminal here, or rather the tower, is like right in the middle, so it's not that far away. So we kind of avoided a lot of potential log time on this level.
right. You may notice that instead of going directly towards the tower, Proto went to the left and then to the right. That was to avoid a checkpoint so that this stucco warp up here would actually work. Otherwise, he'd get warped back to the bridge, which is not a good time because then the tower warp would succeed. Whereas now, we get the stucco warp where you wait until the laser fires and then you can instantly skip everything and be on your way. So that'll be the end of
solid
South.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we're on to Megastructure 3, which is... Oh, I don't know if I'd call it an auto-scroller, but it's perhaps the most walking in the run because we really haven't changed it since we last submitted this run.
I will say the main part of Megastructure 3 and in the very middle of it is really like the amount of, it's very technically it's really high technical input. Like I have tried that, like you'll see it in a second here. There's a huge gap. We'll kind of talk about it before we get there, I guess. There's a big gap coming up that we have to bridge like 5 different times to hit different levers, which we'll show you in a second. But it's a string of clumping that is just a lot of technical input, which is about to see in a second here.
Very intensive. Actually, before we get to that, there's a series of 3 elevators that we have to interact with against our will. Oh, that was the lag spike?
Yeah,
that lag spike happens
it's
every time.
always there.
On GDQ computers, maybe not. We'll see. It'll be fun. But we're going to use a photo fling to go around the bottom of this elevator here because the elevators, at least this elevator in particular, moves so sluggishly that we would rather fall ourselves and just do it ourselves. But other than that, for the most part, all of the core of this is going to be around pulling a bunch of pins to free Prometheus. Would you guess that this game is centered around Greek mythology? I don't know. But these pins are just 5 locations around the map. It's technically 4 if you're playing the game as intended, but they left the pin that one of the characters, the NPCs, would pull for you. Like, you can pull it if you make it there, and that's so much faster than letting them figure it out. So
it takes like 20 to 30. I don't know how long. I feel like it's like 20 to 30 seconds of him just trying to figure it out or so, and then we just go grab it ourselves because it's faster to just jump there.
If you look at what he's trying to figure out, it's literally like going up a stone staircase. So I don't know what his deal is, but it's clearly we
come on, buddy. Yeah, come on, you can do it. We had to do all the puzzles in this game, not you.
Coot fan favorite.
Yeah, so this is what I was referring to before. It's like a series of clumping over to these different ledges, really big gaps, and it looks really intimidating. And it kind of is, to be honest. Like, I mean, like you really have to be proficient at these jumps in order to get all the way across. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to hit these pins. Hurdle's going to grab it right away and just like keep on keeping on to the next one. That's okay. What you can do is you can have a quick cutscene. It saves like a second every time you do it. You can like exit out of that pin pull cutscene every single time you do it. It saves like a second or so every time you pull the pin out, and you can just keep on moving on. But
yeah. So the other thing is normally you'd be doing this in third person, but I think are you going for the thing? I don't know if you're going for the thing or not. He's going for the thing. All right.
Wow, what is up?
That's fine.
Oh, good.
So there's a little silly trick here, which is sort of similar to the wobble that we saw in S2. This doesn't save any time or whatever, but by pulling a pin in first person and opening photo mode at the same time, and then switching to third person, something very funny happens. So we'll see it when we see it. Also, up here is a very slight optimization which has been found kind of recently.
Yeah,
by
this is wild.
going around this way. If you're fast enough on the clumps.
Okay.
No good?
I never miss these, dude. Something's
That's
up.
fine. Nah, that's fine.
It's no biggie.
I'm trying to think if first person actually does affect your ability to open photo mode for these in any. Okay, yeah, we'll just stick with third person. I mean, it's up to you. Whatever works. Because this is just a little silly thing. And again, like, yeah, there we go. We're
Nice.
doing it.
Nice.
So, yeah. So what's happening here is we've activated a cutscene while we're in first person, so the game thinks, okay, we're going to treat it as if we're in first person when we exit the cutscene, but he switched to third person in the middle of it, so that's why he's got big old arms, is the game thinking that you need to put the first person's perspective on top of the third person perspective.
It's very silly looking.
It is very silly looking. And
so
then
good.
from here, we've got some Miranda cutscenes. There's a little slight optimization in terms of the fact that the moment that we come back, you're able to restart checkpoint. And so normally you'd have a little bit of a woozy animation, which again, we haven't been able to see because we keep skipping them. But in this particular instance, you can just restart checkpoint, move a little bit further back, and skip that wooziness. And then we're just going to run all the way back. And so, like Bobby explained earlier, most of these megastructures have this, you jump in, do a thing, and then jump all the way back out. We're going to have to walk all the way back out. There's really nothing that we can do outside of, well, there's things that we've tried. I will say there are things that we've tried where you do that entire pen sequence with the terminal up, but because it exists on a completely separate map, things don't load in the way that you want them to, unlike in Megastructure 1 and 2 where everything's loaded at the same time, so you don't get the proper checkpoint that you need, and so you don't end up warping all the way back. And so as it stands right now, this is an unsolved mystery. We don't really have a way to warp all the way back here. So just shove more donations in, man. Let's give it a try.
For real. And you'll notice that like in the middle of like the megastructure, obviously this whole area is like kind of like down, like relative to where we started. So like it's a lot easier to like find a way to like clip
I don't
into
think
a
I got
wall
that.
and fall down.
You got it?
I did not get
Oh
it.
no!
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, it's fine. So the checkpoints that exist above each of these elevator liftings, it protrudes way too far out, at least as far as I understand. So like when the elevator just barely starts hanging over the ledge, you'll hit the checkpoint for that. And so the elevator normally spends a little bit more time moving into position and then moving down. And so it's actually faster RTA to restart checkpoint the moment that you hit this checkpoint here.
That one worked.
Which should have fired in this particular instance, I think. Yeah, we're good. All right, yeah. So that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that skip aside. I mean, like I was saying, I mean, when you're in this one specifically, the middle of the mega structure for Mega 3 is kind of down relative to where we start, so it's easy to like clip through a wall and just fall down a bunch. Getting out of this area, we do have to like utilize the elevators to actually just go up and get back to where we're getting out here. So that's kind of what you're seeing right now.
Right. And the elevators are brutal as well. We have ways to clip out of elevators. Elevators take away your ability to jump, so you can't clump anymore, but you can still open photo mode in many instances. However, learning from their mistakes, I guess, since 1.0, you will be warped to the position of the elevator about every second or so. So even if you escape an elevator while it's going down, that doesn't do anything because you immediately are dragged back in. Which is the case for quite a few of these in the game where the game wants to drag you back. We've been able to weaponize quite a few of them, but that's the one that we haven't figured out yet. So over here, we're going to do Hermanuba skip, which is actually pretty intense here. So I'm going to be a little bit quiet. Oh, perfect. Perfect. So by walking to the side, you don't have to talk to a guy. And
Yeah, it takes so long to talk to him too. It's so annoying. That's really good.
But this is actually intense now, is that we're going to do an attempt at W1 Super Fling. So like I had explained before, we're going to abuse a conversation we'll be having with this NPC crier that's out here. Thankfully, this one we can control when he starts talking to us, so we can initiate that instantly. But from here, we have to do the same sort of thing where we cancel a conversation, open photo mode on the exact frame, and then open photo mode a couple frames later. I don't think it's exactly frame later either, because you know, the game can never be so convenient. But if he sets up his position just right, hold my breath. Oh, beautiful!
Oh, wow. Oh my god.
So that saves 14 seconds. Basically, instead of getting warped back, you get warped forward.
Let's
I don't know
go.
why it works. It just does. Yeah, sure. Well, I'll take it. It's that one. Yeah, so that one in particular saves 14 seconds. I mean, I'm happy with that to see at least one of those in a run like this. But
So cool.
if you want to do the one in W3, which saves
will.
5 seconds in theory, you will? Hell yeah.
I'll go for it.
Or heck yeah.
Nice.
We will definitely give that another shot. It's the sort of advanced tech that hasn't been weaponized enough yet, because it's one of those things where it's like it's a double frame perfect trick. You know, it really has to save a decent amount of time to get utilized. But we have used the two that saved the most time in the most recent world record, Protal, with his 37, 30.
You also notice that like here we're jumping across a couple gaps. That's a common theme across a lot of these levels. One thing we didn't ever note is that like water in this game is like really bad. So just generally across this game, there's a lot of points where we could just like run across a gap that has water, but it's just deep enough where it'll kill our character. So whenever we see water, we always just want to make sure we're just completely avoiding it. And so usually jumping is always fastest, but we just always avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah, an interesting point is actually if you sink too far into water, you can't even open photo mode, so there's no way to save yourself unless you manage to walk back out. Funny enough, there are ways to get across the water by not sprinting forward. If you sprint to the side, the game doesn't actually check for you going a lot slower. So you can use that in categories that don't have access to photo mode to skip across some water gaps. But even then, it's very conditional. In this particular instance, there's no water. Like if you hit a trigger, you just have to restart. So, like, don't do that. Another lag spike. That's fine.
Yeah.
It'll happen. And then we'll be doing another attempt at a super flying here for W3, and this will be our last tower. So it'd be interesting to see this get pulled off. You may notice that he's spending a decent amount of time waiting for the NPC to talk to us. That's because if you try to walk away from the NPC while it's talking to you, it will drag you back until its position is solidified. So we're just going to let the NPC decide that for us anyway. Oh, there we go.
Oh my gosh. That's so sick. Nice job.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So it'd be nice to have that pop up in a GDQ, because literally all that does, much like the brew skips and many of the other skips here, it just skips some walking. But dang, does it look cool? Skip some walking.
It's so cool. Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, that should be it for this. We'll be doing a stucco warp out of here, and then we've got just we've got a fair amount of cleanup left to go yet. So from here, we have to do Megastructure 4, where we're going to save Byron. For the record, in case anyone's been paying attention to the story, Byron has been captured by his own hubris, and so it is our mission now to save him. We freed Prometheus as in exchange for him to give us enough information to find him, and so then after doing a bunch of these towers, he's giving us the ability to save Byron here. So we will definitely be doing that. Oh, first we have to talk to Hermanubis here. This unfortunately is not skippable, and
It's one of the actual like full
you can go into Sun Don't Shine.
Yeah. It's one of the only full like conversations we actually have with a character in this game in this run. So
Right.
By the way, I just extreme golded W3 because I've never done that in a run.
Nice.
Wow. Let's go. Excellent. That's huge.
So then so once we save Byron, we're going to get warped back to New Jerusalem. We have to convince a couple of our friends. We want to convince as few of them as possible so that we don't have any animations for the VTOL, and then we're going to do Megastructure 5, which is through this gap over here. Or we could just clump to it directly. So this is Megastructure 4 skip. Instead of saving Byron and having to go back to New Jerusalem and fly all the way back, this is the only instance where the Megastructures are on the exact same map, and the only thing that's changed is how the VTOL flies. So if we fly like the VTOL would for Megastructure 5, we skip 5 minutes of just pretty much auto-scroller talking to folks, etc.
And that might be the longest like horizontal gap I think we have to bridge in this game compared to like Megastructure 3. It's pretty close, but
It's
it's
pretty
a, it's,
close,
it's
yeah.
a long one. Yeah, it's a long
Yeah.
one.
And you actually have to
You-
gain height too, which is
Yeah.
agonizing.
By the way, here there's a little hole we can jump through instead of using like an elevator there. There's a little hole on the left we can jump into and hit this little ledge here and just completely avoid an entire elevator.
Yep. And then from here, we've gone through a bunch of iterations for this one, but we've finally decided we're just going to use a photo fling to go through that wall anyway, because might as well. And then we're going to see one of the alternate universe versions of New Jerusalem. There's story. If you want to play the game, we're more than happy to let you do that. So no spoilers. But this is one of my favorite parts of the run. But we, again, why bother? Just skip through everything and go up an elevator.
Yeah.
And time is coming up here shortly. So we're going to be talking to a character, Athena, who is the version of the player character from the first game. Not to be confused with any of the other actual Greek gods that we've talked to. And timing will end when we, I think, skip the cutscene after talking to her. I don't actually remember.
It's when you skip her last dialogue.
When you skip her last dialogue. Okay, thank you. Just a very minor thing, but yeah, this is the end of the game here shortly. It's just going to be mashing a bunch of buttons, and
Wait, there's still one more.
There's still one more.
Okay.
Time. All right.
Nice. Really nice run.
It was very good.
Wow.
Do you have the RTA for that? I'm just curious.
RTA is 45.
Okay, yeah, so 50 should be fine, especially because you didn't manage Megastructure 1. So yeah, no, we've got plenty of buffer room considering a 50-minute time. But yeah, that should be everything. We've got the petting the cat incentive, which is nice, as something to add on there, which you'll see, provided that the incentive is met. But in any case, I think that's it for us. I'm very excited to see the run make it. I'd love to commentate it. Berm,
I'd love to
Bobby,
play it.
anything you want to say?
Yeah, no, this game has never been showcased at a GDQ yet, so that I think it's about time, and I think it would be a great showcase. So really nice job.
And anything from you, Prodal?
I love this game. I'm a Portal runner. Shoutouts to the Portal speedrunning community. Those are my homies. But I just picked up this game and I've had a blast with it ever since. So highly recommend people learn this game, and I'm so glad it has the opportunity to be at a Games Done Quick event.
So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we hope to be there at GDQ.